My wife slept with my best friend, and now she's trying to claim half of our $750, $0 house and $300, $0 in savings. I never imagined our divorce would turn into a legal battle over betrayal and millions in assets. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife slept with my best friend Jake, and now she's trying to take half of our house and savings. It's like some bad soap opera, but this is real life. The most shocking part, it all started with small signs, her phone staying glued to her hand, secretive texts, and her brushing off my questions like I was paranoid. But I didn't want to believe it. I mean, I loved her. We had a nice life, or so I thought. We met in college, got married 5 years ago, and for the most part, things seemed perfect. Was beautiful, confident, a little bitchy sometimes, but I loved her attitude. She always knew what she wanted and was never shy about telling me. Our house was worth about $750, $0, and we had around $300, $0 in savings, mostly from her working her ass off. As a marketing executive, I was in sales making decent money, but she made more, and I never minded sharing what we had. I thought we were solid, that we had trust. Turns out I was dead wrong. The first real sign was her phone. She started taking it everywhere, even to bed. I'd catch her sneaking quick looks at her screen, or she'd hide it when I entered the room. I asked her about it, and she'd roll her eyes, call me paranoid, or say she was just texting her mom. But then I noticed her spending more time away from home, claiming she was working late or meeting friends. She'd come back with new clothes, new jewelry, and a look in her eyes that I couldn't quite place. One night I decided to check her phone when she went to the bathroom. I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. What I found made my stomach drop. A string of messages between her and Jake. Flirty comments, plans to meet up, even explicit talk. I saw that she had been seeing him behind my back for months, maybe longer. They weren't just friends, she was sleeping with him. The messages weren't even subtle, they were blatant, like they didn't care if I saw. I froze. My heart started pounding. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. My mind raced. How could she do this? How could she betray me with my best friend? I thought about all the good times, all the trust we had built. And then I remembered the times she called me paranoid, accused me of overreacting when I questioned her late nights or her strange behavior. I felt sick. I wanted to scream, to shout, to break something. But instead, I just stared at her messages, trying to process what I'd found. The next day, I confronted her. I waited until she was home, and I told her I knew about the affair. Her reaction was classic. She everything at first called me crazy, said I was imagining things. Then she got angry, started yelling at me about how I was controlling, jealous, insecure. She insisted she loved me, that she was just stressed from work, that Jake was just a friend, that I was overreacting. But I had the evidence right in front of me. I showed her the messages, and her face went pale for a second. Then she started crying, saying she was sorry, that it meant nothing, that she was just lonely and stupid. I was devastated. The woman I loved, the woman I trusted, had been lying to me for months. I felt betrayed on every level, emotionally, physically, and now legally. I couldn't sleep that night. All I could think about was how she had been sneaking around, lying, cheating. And Jake, my best friend, he knew, he was in on it, and still I had trusted him. I felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner, for not noticing the signs, for not protecting what we had. I knew I had to decide what to do next. I wasn't just hurt, I was furious. Betrayal like this doesn't just break your heart, it shatters your sense of reality. I started thinking about the money, about the house, the savings. She was trying to claim half of everything, even though she'd been unfaithful. I had worked hard for that house, for those savings. I wasn't about to let her walk away with half of my life's work, especially after what she did. I knew I needed a plan, but right then I was just trying to breathe, trying to hold it together. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. I wasn't about to let her take everything without a fight. Always had this bitchy attitude, like she was entitled to whatever she wanted, but this was different. This was betrayal on a level I couldn't even process at first. The house, the savings, those were my investments, my hard work. She had no right to claim half just because she decided to cheat and lie her way through our marriage. The next few days were a blur. I started digging into everything I could find about our assets, our finances, and the legal side of things. I wanted to be ready. I wasn't about to let her spin some sob story and walk away with a chunk of what I'd built. Meanwhile, kept acting like everything was normal, bitchy, dismissive, throwing around accusations that I was just jealous or trying to control her. She had the nerve to call me paranoid, like I was some crazy husband blowing things out of proportion. She was the one sneaking around, lying, cheating. One night I decided to confront her again, this time more directly. I told her I knew about the affair and I wanted her to be honest. She looked at me with that fake smile she always wore when she was trying to manipulate someone. "You're overreacting, James," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "It's just sex and it meant nothing. Jake and I are just friends, always have been. You're making a big deal out of nothing." That's when I lost it. "Nothing," I shot back. "You've been sleeping with my best friend behind my back for months and you call that nothing. How stupid do you think I am? I saw the messages, I know everything." Her eyes widened for a second, then she started crying again, trying to spin her usual lies. "I was stressed, James. You don't understand what I was going through. Jake just been there for me. It's not what you think." Her voice was shaky, but I wasn't buying it anymore. The damage was done and I was furious. I felt like I'd been punched again, this time in the gut. I told her I wanted a divorce, not just because of the affair, but because I couldn't trust her anymore. I also said I'd fight her for the house and the savings. I wasn't going to let her walk away with a dime, especially since she'd been unfaithful. She threw a fit, calling me names, saying I was overreacting, that I was just jealous and insecure. But I knew better. I knew I had to protect what was mine. I started researching lawyers the next day, getting everything in order. The emotional was intense. I went from shock to rage, then to a deep sadness I couldn't shake. I kept thinking about the good times, the trust we once had, and how it was all gone now. I felt betrayed, humiliated, and hurt, but I also knew I had to be smart. If she thought she could just claim half our assets because she was my wife, she was dead wrong. I knew the law, and I knew I had a case. But that didn't make it easier to deal with the betrayal. It just made me more determined to fight. In the meantime, kept trying to play the victim, crying about how she deserved half of everything because she was married to me. She'd say she was sorry, but her words felt hollow. I saw right through her. Her bitchy attitude, her lies, her manipulations, it all added up. I realized I'd been blind for too long, trusting her blindly. Now I was left with a broken marriage, a pile of lies, and a lot of anger. But I also knew I had to stay focused. I wasn't going to let her cheat her way into my life or my assets. This was just the beginning of what I knew would be a long, ugly fight. After I made the decision to divorce her, everything started moving fast. I contacted a lawyer and we began gathering all the financial documents, bank statements, proof of ownership for the house, everything. I wanted to make sure I had a solid case. Of course, was still acting like she was the victim, throwing around accusations that I was trying to control her, that I was jealous, that I was overreacting. She even had the nerve to say I was being paranoid when I confronted her about the affair. That woman is something else, always trying to spin things her way, no matter how much evidence there was. Meanwhile, I kept thinking about the house, our savings, the future. I knew she'd try to claim her rightful share, but I wasn't going down without a fight. We had a prenup, but she was trying to say that since she was married to me, she deserved half of everything, regardless of the affair. She claimed she'd suffered enough, that she'd been a good wife, and that she deserved her cut. Honestly, I was furious. She had no right to try to take half of what I worked for, especially after she cheated and lied for months. I'd worked hard to build our life, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with it just because she decided to be a cheating bitch. I started digging into the legal side of things, trying to understand how much of the house and savings she could realistically claim. I knew that in our state, assets accumulated during the marriage are usually split 50-50, but with her infidelity, I was hopping to argue that she shouldn't get a dime of my share. I also had proof that she had been secretly funneling money into her own accounts, buying jewelry and designer clothes, all while telling me she was saving for our future. That just made me angrier. She was spending money we didn't have, wasting it on her affair, while trying to claim half of everything I'd earned honestly. One evening, I caught her trying to manipulate me again. She came home looking extra bitchy, with that sneer she always wore when she thought she was in control. She tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like, "James, you're just jealous because I found someone who treats me better than you ever did." I looked her straight in the eyes and said, "You're not getting a damn thing from me. You betrayed me, and I'm going to fight for what's mine. You're not taking half of my house or my savings just because you're a lying, cheating bitch." Her face twisted with rage, but she knew I was serious. I also started thinking about how to handle her false accusations. She was claiming I was abusive, controlling, and that I was the reason she had to cheat. All lies. I'd never laid a finger on her, never raised my voice. I knew she was trying to turn the situation around, make me look like the bad guy. That's classic. She's good at lying, twisting facts, and playing the victim when it suits her. I had to stay calm, keep my evidence ready, and be prepared for whatever she threw at me. The most frustrating part was that she kept trying to act like she was the innocent victim, crying fake tears, saying she deserved a fresh start, and that I was just insecure. She even claimed she was stressed out, which is why she cheated. Yeah, right. I've seen her in action enough to know she's a master manipulator. She's always been bitchy, demanding, and entitled, but now she was taking it to a new level. She thought she could just lie her way through this, get half the assets, and walk out unscathed. I wasn't about to let that happen. I knew I had to be smart, strategic, and prepared for the legal fight ahead. I wasn't just fighting over money. I was fighting to protect my dignity, my future, and what I had worked so hard for. Every day, I reminded myself that I was doing this for myself, for the respect I deserved, and not to let her manipulate her way into my life anymore. The betrayal cut deep, but I was determined to come out of this stronger, even if it meant going through hell first. The legal process moved faster than I expected. True to her bitchy nature, started making demands that were outright ridiculous. She claimed she deserved half the house, claiming she'd contributed equally, even though I knew she was trying to justify her affair and her greed. She kept insisting that because we were married, she was entitled to everything, regardless of her cheating. I couldn't believe how shameless she was being, lying, twisting facts, and throwing tantrums like a spoiled brat. I sat down with my lawyer, Mark, and we went over everything in detail. I had a mountain of evidence. The text messages, her spending habits, her lies about her whereabouts, even some hidden bank accounts she'd opened to stash money away. Mark told me that in our state, assets accumulated during the marriage are usually split 50-50, but infidelity can sometimes be a factor in court if it can be proven that she spent marital funds on her affair or that she was acting in bad faith. I was relieved to hear that, but I knew would fight dirty. One day, she stormed into my apartment, crying, trying to guilt me into dropping the case. She said things like, "James, think about the kids if we had any," or "You're just bitter because I found someone better." That was hilarious. We didn't have kids, and she was the one cheating, but she was throwing every guilt trip she could think of. I just looked her in the eyes and told her I wasn't falling for her manipulations. I told her I knew she was trying to take everything I had worked for, and I wasn't going to let her. She got even more bitchy when I told her I wanted to fight for the house and the savings. She snapped, "You think you can just buy your way out of this? I'm entitled to half, James. You're not going to get away with this." I knew she was bluffing, but her attitude was relentless. She kept trying to spin it like she was the victim, saying she deserved a fresh start and that she was suffering. I rolled my eyes. She's always been good at playing the victim, but I saw right through her. Meanwhile, I started preparing for the worst. I hired a private investigator to verify her stories, just in case she tried to fake some kind of abuse claim or other tactic to get the court to sympathize with her. I knew her game. She's good at lying, and she'd try to manipulate the situation to her advantage. I wasn't about to let her do that. I also started documenting everything, every conversation, every threat, every attempt she made to sway the outcome in her favor. The most infuriating part was her constant accusations that I was trying to control her or that I was jealous. I couldn't believe she had the nerve to say that when she was the one sneaking around behind my back. I kept thinking, how did I miss this? I'd always thought she was the confident, bitchy woman who knew what she wanted. Turns out, she's just a manipulative liar who was willing to cheat on her husband and then turn the tables to make herself look innocent. I knew the legal battle was only just beginning, but I was ready. I had my evidence, my lawyer, and a clear plan. I wasn't going to let her walk away with half of my life's work just because she decided to cheat and lie her way through our marriage. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, that I'd worked too hard and been too loyal to let her get away with this. Every day, I felt more determined to fight for what was rightfully mine, no matter how much she tried to manipulate, lie, or guilt me into giving her what she wanted. The court dates started coming up faster than I expected. True to her bitchy nature, was stubborn and refused to back down. She kept claiming she was entitled to half the house, half the savings because we were married, and somehow that meant she deserved everything, regardless of her affair. She even went as far as to accuse me of trying to control her, which was laughable considering she was the one sneaking around behind my back. Her whole attitude was entitled, manipulative, and designed to keep me on the defensive. During the hearings, I brought out all the evidence I had collected. The text messages, the secret bank accounts, her spending sprees, and her inconsistent stories about her whereabouts. Mark, my lawyer, was relentless. He argued that her infidelity should impact her claim because she had used marital funds to support her affair with Jake, and that her lies and manipulations during the marriage demonstrated bad faith. The judge listened carefully, and I could see the wheels turning in her mind as she realized she was losing ground. His response was classic. She started crying, calling me controlling, jealous, and abusive. She said I was trying to ruin her just because she made a mistake. That woman is so good at playing the victim, always crying, always blaming everyone else for her problems. I sat there, feeling a mix of anger and frustration. How could she be so shameless? How could she sit there and pretend she was the innocent party when I had the evidence right in front of everyone? The day of the final hearing, I was nervous but also relieved. I knew I had a strong case. Kept trying to spin her lies, claiming that she deserved half the assets because she was married to me, and that her affair was just a mistake. I couldn't believe how entitled she was. I looked her straight in the eyes and told the judge that she had betrayed my trust, used our marriage for her own benefit, and that her affair was a clear indication of her bad faith. I emphasized that I wanted to keep the house, which I had paid for mostly, and that I was prepared to fight for every dollar of my savings. In the end, the judge made a ruling. She awarded me full ownership of the house, noting that it was purchased before the marriage and that claims were invalid due to her infidelity and misuse of marital funds. My savings were also protected. His face was a picture of fury and disbelief. She kept protesting, but the judge was firm. She had no choice but to accept the verdict. After the court decision's bitchy attitude only intensified. She tried to threaten me, saying she'd fight to the end, even tried to accuse me of abuse again to sway public opinion or the court. But I knew better. I had evidence, I had the law on my side, and I was done playing her game. The whole experience was exhausting emotionally, mentally, and financially. I felt drained but also relieved that I stood my ground. Now I'm left to pick up the pieces. The house is mine, and I've managed to protect my savings. But the betrayal still stings. I trusted, and she threw it all away for some cheap sex and a lie. I've learned that some women are just entitled, manipulative, and willing to do anything to get what they want, regardless of the cost. I don't plan on ever trusting her again, and I definitely won't let her manipulate her way into my life or my assets anymore. This whole mess has taught me that sometimes you have to fight hard for what's right, even if it means losing some sleep and a lot of money. Now that everything's settled legally, I feel like I've been through a war and come out the other side battered but victorious. The house is mine, and I got to keep most of my savings. But honestly, I don't think I'll ever fully recover from the betrayal. Actions tore apart everything I thought we had: trust, respect, the life we built together. It's strange how someone you love can turn into a stranger overnight, just because they wanted some sex and excitement outside the marriage. Looking back, I realize I was blind for a long time. I wanted to believe the best in her, even when the signs were there. Her bitchy attitude, her secretive phone habits, her spending sprees, I should have seen the warning signs. Instead, I kept making excuses, telling myself she was stressed or busy. But the truth was, she was cheating, lying, and manipulating her way into what she wanted. And I let her get away with it for far too long. What I've learned from this whole nightmare is that you can't trust everyone, even those closest to you. Sometimes, the people you think are your friends or your spouse are just looking out for themselves. I also learned that legal battles are brutal, and you have to be prepared to fight for what's rightfully yours. You can't just roll over and accept whatever they throw at you, especially when they're trying to take advantage of your kindness or trust. Most importantly, I've realized that self-respect matters more than anything. I refuse to let her or anyone else make me feel small or unworthy. I'm rebuilding now, focusing on myself and my future. I might be, but I'm stronger because of this. I'll never let someone betray me like that again, and I'll always be cautious about who I trust. To anyone going through something similar, I'd say this: stand your ground. Gather your evidence, get a good lawyer, and don't let anyone manipulate or guilt you into giving up what you've worked for. You deserve honesty, loyalty, and respect, and if someone can't give you that, they don't deserve a place in your life. It's a harsh lesson, but I've learned it the hard way. Now I'm just trying to move forward knowing I fought for myself and won. That's all that matters.